Okay, and this works as well. Hello, everyone. So I think the initial title was the future potential of digitization in our world, but the future is already here, so I removed future and going to talk about what's happening really here and now in our world. I'm Niklas Fehrm, as introduced, Chief Revenue Officer of Scrive. And very, very quickly, this is not a product pitch at all. What we do is, as already said, we're offering e-signing and digital identification in close to 200 countries now. We probably have around 7,000 clients globally today. We started in Sweden in 2010, and today offices in Norway, Denmark, Netherlands, and the latest edition is Germany. We're based in Munich and building up the German team. I think we're close to 240 people now. Pre-COVID, we were 80, so it's been immense growth the last 2 years. And as an example, we had a total of 1 million contracts signed on our platform late 2016 to now look at 1.5 million contracts signed on our platform on a monthly basis. Acquired in 2020 by a UK VC company, led us to also acquire a competitor in Denmark last year. When you ask me what we're doing, when I'm trying to explain that to people who are absolutely not legal people or tech people, I say that we help them, our customers, to automate customer onboarding or automating workflows. We do that in any channel, and the tools we use are e-signing and e-identification. Another way of looking at what we do is we're transforming businesses. We're helping businesses transform themselves by increasing data quality, improving data quality, and improving customer experience. When I say customer experience, I want you to think of customers as everyone you ever encounter. For us, a customer is the customer's end customer, but it's also internal other departments, it's employees, it's dealer representatives, it's suppliers, etc. But instead of me pitching you what's going on in our world, I will instead refer to this study performed early 2021 by McKinsey. They surveyed approximately 3,000 car buyers in China, in US, but mostly in Germany. And clearly today, still, this is now a year ago, or more, 1.5 years ago, so this might have changed even more, but still, the number one ranking, the strongest perimeter when you're buying a new car is a dealership visit. Absolutely, that's what affects the decision the most. Second, they say, however, that the dealership is considered to only have its actual reason for existence because of having the physical car experience. For most people, that seems to be the only thing remaining, why they entering the dealership. They also surveyed that approximately 20% more often online than offline sources were used during that pre-purchase journey. 80% of the respondents here said that they had started using online resource back then, and this is a number that we know has increased since. If we move on to this right box here, what's more challenging, I would say, is that less than 50% of these respondents said that, yeah, the sales rep can really give me all the information that I need. This might be a challenge. Secondly here, this number, 72%, clearly stated that to sign a finance contract for my car purchase, I don't really need the physical relationship. I would happily do that online. And 55% says that, yeah, I would definitely sign, pay, and basically just get my car without physical interaction. These are the biggest findings, but then if we look in detail, there's a few other lines that are not clearly displayed here. For example, only 1% of these 3,000-ish respondents were completely satisfied with their car buying experience. 40% said that when it comes to service orders or repairs, I would absolutely prefer to not be anywhere near a repair shop or a dealership. I would love to get this done remotely, have it picked up and delivered back to me without any physical interaction. And the numbers keeps growing. This digitalization thing is not a nice to have. It's a need to have, and it's already happened, especially, I would say, in the Nordics. We might be a few years ahead, but now, with our European expansion, we're starting to see these trends more and more happening basically all over Europe. To sum things up, McKinsey said it, but we're seeing also, and what our customers are telling us, their end customers, they want a fully digital onboarding. Definitely. It needs to be a low effort threshold. It needs to be very, very time efficient. They're also expecting it to be intuitive. and responsive in every step along each interaction. It needs to be fast and it needs to be agile. These are hard expectancies now. That's just the way it is. So this new normal that was probably a bit forced by COVID, but had happened anyhow, now requires lasting change. So if it's that straightforward, is it that easy? Probably not, right? Because many of you guys and many of our clients have roadblocks. There's internal IT guidelines that they need to adhere to, which are not always in line with the needs for digitization. There's also authentication needs, depending on what kind of process we want to digitize. If we want to digitize a financial agreement, that requires one level of electronic signatures and identification. If we want to digitize a less challenging process, it might be a different need for authentication. This differs country per country, but also, again, process per process. We're starting to see more and more that anti-money laundering laws and related KYC, so know your customer requirements, are becoming increasingly hard. This puts a toll on many digitization efforts. Data security, GDPR in general, of course. Lacking of IT resources is a challenge. And also being compliant with current regulations, as they're also getting tougher and tougher and shifting with the latest big change in 2020, the Schrems II sentence in the European Court. So I want to really quickly run you through 3 successful cases that we've had with customers of ours. Some of them you will definitely recognize, one of them maybe not so much, but they're probably relevant for anyone within the automotive industry, no matter where you're residing. First of all, we have a non-captive finance provider here, the Norske Bank, DNB. Hopefully some of you familiar with. This is their current, I think he is the Nordic Marine Director now. So non-captive. They're not related to an OEM. They need to compete somehow to get the resellers to pick their financial solution when the customer is financing a car. The result of doing this with us, and it would most likely have been the same with any similar provider, was going from a 12% error rate. So at 12% of the times before digitizing, customers had to come back to the store and redo the process. Digitizing gave them from 12 to 0. Also, they were able to pay out the kickback back to the resellers within 30 minutes instead of what earlier took days or even weeks. There's a few common denominators I will start talking about now. So what happened here? Like what were the most relevant common denominators that made this successful? So first of all, this was a compliance-driven project. This started with them. This is early stage even for us. This is 2014. A business developer found our book on e-signing, because we are the legal thought leader regarding electronic signatures and identification in the Nordics. He had read that, came to us, he wanted internal help to go in-house to his legal team and convince them that this was a safe thing to do. We managed to do that. Together with their legal team, we went to the Norwegian legislature and had them reassess Norwegian legislation to actually change and alter legislation in order for us together to be able to digitize the financial contracts and store them in the appropriate manner. So legal compliance was the first thing. Second, again, was to make sure that EIDs and know your customer requirements were set per process and not one solution that fitted all of their different contracts. They nailed one process at a time. They wanted to offer digitization, but they didn't want to go all at once and try to make everything digital from start. They started only with the financial contracts. And it was a very, very customer-centric analysis that drove this. But for them, the customer was not necessarily the end customer. For them, the customer was the dealer to start with. Because how do you compete as a non-captive provider? You can basically, until they started digitizing, the only thing they did was to offer better kickbacks. They stopped doing that and decided, let's be the smoothest operator to work with. Then something that you're more familiar with, Volkswagen Financial Services. We have a relationship, a frame agreement with Digital Unit in Berlin, and together with them we have now rolled out to, I think, 12 or 13 various markets for Volkswagen Financial Services, providing all of their clients then in turn a significantly improved onboarding process. The difference here is, again, starting off with a legal challenge. This also was a compliance-driven project. So this was a new process. Volkswagen Financial Services really wanted to make sure that they had the strongest possible evidence material related to the signing of a contract, and they had to work with somebody who could help them do legal assessments per market. We did that for them. They focused solely on financial agreements. Again, nothing else. Chopping the elephants in parts. Now today we're offering or doing service agreements, signing of dealership contracts, internal process, etc. But they started with financial contracts, clearly defined scope. Also, in this case, what we were able to do together with them was to offer, which is very important, one and the same journey, no matter in what channel you are. It should be the same experience, no matter where you're initiating this process. The third example is a Swedish dealer of used cars, currently the biggest market share in Sweden when it comes to selling used cars. What we did together with them was basically to just remove the physical store visit. We digitized this completely remote session, so phone call, e-identification. This is a different thing in Sweden. It's very straightforward. We digitized it, and e-identification. The seller and the buyer of the used cars never had to physically encounter and didn't even have to go to the store because Riddermark came and picked it up. Started with one process, did not try to go for everything, has now moved on to making use of electronic identification when they're doing test drives. For a different reason, they have people stealing cars whilst out test driving. They need this for proof in case if this happens. Also, same thing, wherever you're initiating this process, it needs to be the same experience. So same experience in every channel. For them, this increased, more than doubled their sales of used cars from 2020 to 2021. They managed to decrease the complete cycle from purchasing a car to having it sold to someone else by more than 90%, and their customer effort score increased. Quadrupled, 4x. Customer effort score, asking the question, how invasive or how easy was it for you to make this process? Where 1 is ridiculously invasive and I will never do it again, and 5 is complete, streamlined and super smooth. They 4x'd this number, customer effort score. So, common denominators now, to sum these up. First of all the bigger projects that we're doing, and that anyone wanting to digitize contracts related to what we're talking about here needs to be starting from a legal standpoint. As soon as you start doing this from digital or CX or tech or commercial, you will sooner or later end up bumping into legislation. You need to involve the legal team from scratch. They need to be in this because, after all, what we're doing is we're digitizing, but it's legal technology. Legal needs to be involved. Second thing is we need to really make sure that we have identified what's the requisites per specific process that we want to digitize. You do not want to have one and the same onboarding or identification solution for all your processes because they come with different requirements as well. For example, in Germany, many of the processes that we would want to digitize here now, for example, the signing of a financial contracts electronically, it's quite an invasive process. So BaFin, the regulatory body here in Germany, requires that a financial contract is signed with a qualified electronic signature. Some of you have probably heard of Verimi or Swisscom, and onboarding to one of these EIDs is ridiculously invasive at this moment in Germany compared to how you're onboarding to an EID in Sweden. But it's not a necessity that you need to make use of this kind of EID depending on what process you're running. So always look at what's the process and what's the specific market requirements. Third thing is, you heard me say that a few times now, digitization, workflow automation is great, but as soon as you're trying to do everything at once, it's going to completely break. Chop the elephant in pieces, chose one process at a time, make that work, but be also clear that you have a longer plan, so everything you're doing needs to be involved around the same overarching end goal, but start piece by piece chopping the elephants. needs to be customer-centric here, in combination with being very, very compliant and in touch with the legal team. It needs to be customer-centric. But we see many of our customers forgetting about who the customer is. The end customer is one. It needs to be just as easy and relevant for the employees, for your partners, for your suppliers. Anyone involved in these different processes needs to be considered as important when you're trying to facilitate this. It's preferable to have the same journey in whatever channel you're using. Most of us know this, but it might be easy to skip a few steps and think, let's just fix this process for this channel and then take care of the rest. Start instead by making this an omni-channel collaboration. Life will be a lot easier. And the final thing, pick the right partners. When it comes to digitization, I have a stake in this, obviously, because I'm saying I'm the right partner. But in general, there's providers that can offer you the tech, and only the tech. There's providers that can offer you the legal insight, but only the legal insight. And here you want somebody able to offer you the legal assessments, the legal thought leadership, the technological platform as well, and also the consultative approach to how you run these projects to maximize the potential of onboarding and adoption. And that's what we do. So to sum things up, this is quite complex, but it does not have to be complicated, and that's why we're around. That's what I have.
So it's question and answer time, right?
Sorry, what?
So it's question and answer time, right?
Yeah.
Is it?
I don't know.
We have time for one very quick question.
It's a small group of people here left.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Okay, but I'm sure you'll be open to answer any questions occurring later, also at the bar.
Yeah. The more beers, the more answers.
You heard him.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Niklas Fehrm, ladies and gentlemen.